podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
Well. The final whistle has just gone. Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, Chelsea 3. And I think the best I can do about that is say that we won. It wasn't a classic. It was driving rain. Wolves were absolutely abysmal, particularly in that first half. They didn't offer a single thing. And even though I thought Chelsea, they were 3-0 up and they didn't even try. I don't think Chelsea played particularly well today across the whole game. And that's not a knock or to be miserable. I just think it was a very poor game of football to watch. What I will say, it's quite an easy game for Chelsea, and they'll feel pleased that they've kind of had to have an easier ride after 90 minutes against Arsenal in midweek. But I just think that it's a really hard game to speak about. There was not a lot of action. Pleased for Palmer, obviously, to score a hat-trick. It's his fourth Premier League hat-trick for Chelsea, which is amazing. And I don't think Palmer played well. And once again, I'm not trying to be miserable when I say that, but I don't think he did anything. He obviously two penalties and a great cutback from Kukurea for him to smash into the roof of the net, which is good because he's missed a couple of these recently, actually, where he's ballooned over the bar. So it was nice for him to actually roof this one and make it a hat-trick before half-time. But yeah, it was just very dull. Chelsea just seemed very in control. They moved the ball quite well in the first half. After the first 10 minutes, it was all Chelsea, and Wolves couldn't get out of their half, and some real boneheaded decisions from the Wolverhampton players. The first instance, Doherty on João Pedro, he's going nowhere, and he just sort of kicks him just randomly off the ball for a penalty, and it's dispatched really well by Palmer. And then secondly, Pedro, I say he's going nowhere. He's going towards goal, but he's going kind of away from goal. He's in the area, or just about in the area, and Mosquera makes no attempt to play the ball. He just two-hand shoves him straight into the back. And I thought, was it outside the box? But luckily for us, it was inside. He was on the line, so that classes as a penalty. And Palmer coolly dispatched in the opposite direction to make it 2-0. And then, like I say, a bit later on, a lovely cutback from Kukurea, and Palmer booted it in for 3-0. And you're thinking, okay, we should really go and get 4 or 5 if we can here. But we just didn't really find any rhythm in the second half. Wolves, yet another set piece, comes into our box, missed the first header, ball drops down to João Pedro's feet, doesn't really know it's there, and Wolves tap in for an easy goal to make it 3-1, and you're thinking, will they make a game of this? And they tried. They did have a little go. I mean, it was a little go. I mean, I'm not going to give them too much credit. They had a little spell of maybe 5 or 6 minutes where they tried, they attempted to put some pressure on Chelsea, but we didn't even really have to defend that well to kind of keep them at bay. Although I did think Trev had a decent game today. I thought in the back four, he was very solid. He won a lot of good tackles in the first half as well as the second half. But yeah, they just didn't. Once the game got to a certain point, we made a few substitutions. And yeah, it was just a casual, easy victory. It would be nice here to say we've got on to win 5 and 6-0, and we deserved it, and play some scintillating football. But it wasn't that. It was fairly bog standard. But overall, I mean, we can be very pleased with the 3 points. I think what Chris will say, and I tend to agree with him on this point, is not every game of football needs to be scintillating and really exciting. I would like to be excited. I would like to be entertained. But there are certain games that you just go to and you say, win, get on the bus, get home, and let's not worry about what happened. And I think that game falls directly into that category. It wasn't a classic by any means, and Chelsea can feel very pleased with themselves. They've had a game midweek, like I say, a tough match where they would have exerted a fair amount of energy against Arsenal, and this was the perfect tonic to sort of go, all right, we haven't got to do very much today. If we can get 3 points and get back to the bridge next week, this is what we need. And Leeds coming up is going to be a much more difficult game, and I think we'll know that. And hopefully, by the way we played against Leeds in the first game, I'm hoping that we can, at the very least, put in a much better performance against them and look to get 3 points, because we were woeful in the away game against Leeds United. So, yeah, we have that to look forward to. But it's a difficult game. We just weren't really at it today. But Liam Rosenior, I'm sure, will be very pleased to come away with a pretty easy 3 points. And nobody picked up any injuries. All these things are bonuses. And he will see it as Palmer scoring a hat-trick as giving him some confidence. Obviously, he cupped his ears when he's got his first goal to maybe send a few messages to any doubters that think he has lost his Midas touch or something. He is definitely not fit. I'm going out on a limb there, I know, but he's definitely not the Cole Palmer of old at the moment. He's carrying a knock until he gets it surgically repaired, or he has enough time to recover from this. Then I don't know if we're going to see the real Cole Palmer for a little while. But if he can score 3 goals while not feeling his very best, then that can't be a bad thing. What I will say lastly is, at least we haven't given Wolves any freebies today, in the sense that we haven't given them any points over the 2 games we played against them, because they are a terrible team, and unfortunately there is only one way they're going, and that is relegation, and they probably know that. The fans are incredibly bored. They look disinterested. I do feel sorry for them. They've obviously just sold their talisman, Strand Larsen, to Palace, so they've got nobody up front really. Hwang went off in the first half to a chorus of kind of boos and jeers from his own supporters. They're a club in crisis at the moment, and usually Chelsea are the sort of team that go and give these teams a draw or some kind of cheap goal. But at least today we've gone there, done the business, got the job done, and we can look forward to a midweek game against Leeds United.
Yeah, I think that's the definition of a difficult game to podcast about, but we'll do our best. No, so the first thing I want to say actually is about the lineup of things. So cast your minds back to, well, the opposition we've got on Tuesday, Leeds away earlier in the season. Obviously a disaster game, disaster night for us, and so maybe that felt like a bit of the beginning of the end for Maresca, really, because after that game we never really got going again under Maresca. And after the game, I came on this podcast and said I thought it was a bit naive from Maresca and not understanding that there are certain types of games that you just can't rotate in. And obviously Leeds United away on a big Wednesday night in December, rivalry with Chelsea, etc., was always going to make that game more difficult than the average Premier League game. But the fundamental thing I said on that pod was, I just think away from home in the Premier League, you can't really get away with it too often. And what I'd say about today's performance and today's lineup is that he probably rotated quite a lot less than most of us were expecting. When the team came out, particularly the back four, I was quite surprised to see Fofana and Cucurella in there, for example. I think we all kind of thought that maybe Josh Hutchinson would come in for a start, and I think we would all probably quite like to see him get a start. Maybe Hato would come in for Cucurella as well. Perhaps even one of Enzo or Casado would get a rest as well. But he went strong. And do you know what? I think he made the right call. That's 4 wins in a row in the Premier League. At this stage, I think he needs to keep momentum going, Rosenior. It's a really good start for him, isn't it? Like, it's flawless outside of the semi-final. And I think I like the fact that he's taking everything seriously, and you can just see that the big thing, he keeps talking about it. I mentioned it on the last pod, and he said it on the press conference in the lead up to this game, which is like, actually he's not talking to the lads much about the football side. He said they're all really good footballers. They know tactically they're very good, but it's the mentality part, it's the drive, it's the focus, the concentration. He said that's what makes the difference between a good team and a great team, is being able to be consistent. And I think you can sort of just see that, I think, in the Chelsea side. And even at the end, when the second half was dreadful, don't get me wrong, but you've got Trev Chalobah doing a big sliding block in the 94th minute or something out for a corner, and he's getting high fives from the players. There's a bit of a togetherness there, I think, growing, and a realization that, yeah, even Wolves away, one of the worst teams in Premier League history, they might be. I mean, they might break Derby's points record, which is pretty incredible, but there is a focus and a determination, and that is, that's brass tacks. That's the absolute minimum that you need to have. So I think that is encouraging. The goal, I'll sort of start with the second half, I guess, because the second half is so recent. The goal, again from a corner. Liam Rosenior must be pulling his hair out. I think probably half of the goals we've conceded under him have been from corners. And yeah, just so sloppy as always. It was, you saw like gusto sort of flick your heel at it. It's all too passive, wasn't it? And you could see the one thing I did like about it, if you can like it in any way, is Rob Sencher's reaction. He was absolutely fuming again. And you can see that he's done that a few times when we've conceded goals. And to be honest, it's what you want to see. It's same as similar to the Palace game, wasn't it? Where, again, very similar, sloppy goal from a corner when you're 3-0 up. Very, very similar. He was furious then, and again, he was furious today. Yeah, and what can you say really about the first half? The only thing I might say on Palmer is that I agree. I don't think he was brilliant. He had that one little moment after he scored his hat-trick where he dropped the shoulder in the sort of corner of the left box, did a lovely little turn and put a great ball across. And I thought in that little moment, I was like, oh, there's a spark of the old Palmer. As Joe says, that finish was old Palmer. The penalties were dispatched as he always does, to be fair. I mean, he's just so good, isn't he? And he only played an hour. Using him wisely, I just hope that this gives him that little kind of kick of confidence and spark to get Palmer back, because if we can get him back, well, we know how good he is. Other than that, I think the only thing really frustrating about the second half was just not to get another goal, wasn't it? And Pedro Neto really guilty twice of having very good chances and not doing well enough. And quite a few moments where we went forward and we're just sloppy with the final ball and things like that, which was a bit disappointing. But at the end of the day, as Joe said, you get back on the bus and, to be honest, you don't care. You just don't care. It feels a bit flat, very similar to the League Cup game, wasn't it, at Wolves, where we were 3-0 up at half time, and then the second half, you sort of lose the second half, so you kind of come off feeling almost a bit flat, but you got to just say it's 3 points, move on. I was just looking at the numbers. I was trying to almost find stuff to talk about the game, and the one thing that jumped out, looking at some of the individual performances, was with the passing stats of the centre-backs and Caicedo. So obviously we did keep the ball well. You could see with Wolves attackers just getting frustrated, really. They were sort of being run around in circles and in triangles at the time. Trev Chalobah, 99 passes completed out of 101. Flawless. Wes Fofana, 90 completed out of 92. And Moise Caicedo, I think 94 out of 96. So those three guys were absolutely flawless in possession of the ball. Really, really good. And I thought actually Caicedo for me was just, again, one of those where I thought, oh, he looked a little bit more like his old self today in some of the way he was winning the ball back and being sensible about doing it at the right time. So, yeah, again, getting these guys, Cucurella I thought looked better as well, actually. He's now back to the kind of Cucurella that we know and love in the last couple of games. I think, again, it sounds silly because he's a left back, but I think scoring that big goal against West Ham looks to have given him done him the world of good, I think, and given him a bit of kick of confidence and maybe reminding himself of how important he is to this Chelsea side. So yeah, a positive day. On to Wolves, and obviously looking at how the league table is shaping up, because with Man United winning today but Villa dropping points, it is tightening up. We're moving ourselves away a little bit. There's quite clearly a top six establishing itself in the Premier League now. I can't see the six that are there now changing. So as we said on the last pod, I think it'll be 5 from 6. And if I'm Villa, I'd be a bit nervous. They were very lucky by all accounts to come out with a point from Bournemouth today. Bournemouth had so many chances and so many shots. But yeah, and United just keep winning under Carrick, don't they? Keep winning. So yeah, Chelsea have just got to keep the run going. The fixtures, the next 2 or 3 are winnable in the league. And then we go to Arsenal. And after the other night, we kind of owe them one, don't we?
So as we move into our next game on Tuesday night, we turn our attention to Leeds United and the dirty bastard Leeds. Now, they are a team that we have in recent years got a very good home record. Away record has not been as good as we would like, but I think we can draw upon some really good results against them at home. Their form is 2 wins in 6 Premier League games, and they had a very good result against Nottingham Forest on Friday night, which has kind of pushed them, you can't say towards safety, but certainly it's given them the upper hand in that kind of department. They're up to 16th position. They're a funny side, Leeds. They seem to sort of win games that you don't expect them to, particularly when they played us at Ellen Road a few weeks back before Enzo Maresca got the boot. But a bit like Chris, I'm still sitting here thinking, how the hell did we lose to Leeds United? And it wasn't the fact that we lost to them, it was the way we lost to them. The goals we conceded were absolutely crap, like the worst kind of goals. On the night Badiashile and Tosin played, well, at least we've got the feeling inside that it's not going to be a Tosin and Badiashile partnership on the night. I have to say, I think it will change slightly. Will Chalobah and Fofana keep playing together? I don't know, but it is nice to see Liam Rosenior sticking with a partnership, or certainly rotating maybe a couple of players around, 3 players perhaps, and giving us a little bit more defensive solidity, which has been sadly lacking in our back two, if you want to call it that, in the last few months. And I think that Liam Rosenior will look at Leeds and then Burnley at the weekend as very winnable games, both at home, of course, and you have to look at 6 points as a bare minimum. I know football is football and you never know what might happen on the day, but with Chelsea, if they've got any ambition of finishing inside the top 4, 3, 5 positions, they've got to pick up wins against these sides because they're not great. Leeds will cause us a problem. There's no doubt about it. Say Calvert-Lewin has got 10 goals for the season now, and I've never rated Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I've never rated him as a player. But he is in a slight purple patch for Leeds, and he is going to be their major goal threat. And I think that Chelsea, as a group, under new management, are more than capable of keeping him quiet. But, like I say, we can't take them lightly. I think that if we can get 6 points against Leeds and Burnley, that takes us nicely into the Arsenal away game, and then we have Aston Villa at home. So these are 2 very pivotal games, and I think that if you drop points against Leeds and Burnley, you're going to put yourself on the back foot. You've got to be looking at Arsenal and Aston Villa and going, we might have to get a result against these. And if, at the very least, we can pick up 6 points here, it just takes the pressure off against Arsenal in particular. And the way that Villa's form is currently going, you quite fancy yourself to get a result against them. But I think, first and foremost, let's make sure that we are picking the right team and not making too many changes to the starting 11, because they don't want to find themselves in a position like they did last weekend against West Ham, where they made 7 changes and Chelsea are 2-0 down at half time and you're constantly chasing the game. You do not want to be in a position where you're doing that. So I think that Liam Rosenior has probably learnt from that very, very quickly. And managing in France, you might be able to make 7 changes and get away with it. In the Premier League, it just doesn't happen. And even though I don't think the Premier League this year is particularly strong, not as strong as it has been for many, many years, there are still threats from all around the pitch. You look at Wolves today, launching the ball in from corners and throw-ins at every opportunity because they know that Chelsea have maybe got a defensive frailty there. And it means that you could be playing fantastic football. You might have had loads of chances, keepers having a fantastic game for the opposition. Here you're creating and you're very much in the game, and 2 long throws and you're 2-0 down. And I think this is the problem that Chelsea have. They've got to sort out this insecurity from basically the ball being launched into their box. We have to come up with a plan that is much more befitting of a Champions League club. I was watching the game with my son today and he said something along the lines of, why don't Chelsea just find somebody to throw long throws into the box? Why don't Chelsea just put the ball into the middle at every opportunity like other teams do against us? And this is kind of a byproduct of what all these Premier League teams are doing currently. And you include Arsenal in this, who are currently top of the table. kids see things very differently to adults in a lot of ways. And he's just going, well, Chelsea should launch it in there and hope for the best, hope for a ricochet. We're not built for that. This team and this club is not built for that. And in a weird way, I'm quite pleased that we don't. If Chelsea do start doing this under Liam Rosenior, then you take what you can get. And if you get the odd goal from that sort of thing, then fine. But I do get irritated by teams coming up, spending 3 minutes to take a long throw. It gets launched into the box. It gets bounced around and boosted up the field. I don't really want to see my teams doing that, if I'm being honest. And ultimately, teams won't really care. If they get goals from it and points from it, they'll continue to throw that ball in the box as many times as possible. But the Premier League as a product probably don't love the fact that there's lots of sides just basically wasting time, throwing the ball into the mixer, like we would say when we were younger, hoping for something to happen. The Premier League, in my opinion, was built on good football, good intelligence, the way you can play around a side and cut a team open. We've seen so many good sides over the years. Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal with Bergkamp and Henry and Robert Perez. There's been so many good sides over the years, and suddenly now we are being kind of faced with this every time the ball gets near the fucking 18-yard box. Let's just launch it in there and see what can happen. I really hope that we don't fall into that trap, because I think that even though there'll be some supporters begging for it because that's what is happening against us, I really hope we can keep coming up with different ideas to win football matches, because when I look at it on the face of it, I find it actually quite depressing. You can score goals however you want. There's no written rule to say that that goal's better than another goal scored in the league that day. But I do live in hope and a world that this phase of football will certainly be eradicated as soon as possible. A long throw now and again, absolutely love it. An indirect free kick put into the box every now and again, absolutely love it. There's nothing to say that I don't enjoy that. But every time these teams get the ball and they spend, like I say, 30 seconds to a minute and a half to put the ball in the box is just driving me insane. So hopefully, after this season, it might be a thing of the past. But please, oh bloody please, Chelsea, you owe us a performance against Leeds United, because the one that we had under Enzo Maresca a few weeks ago was arguably one of our worst performances of the season, and our worst performance in quite some time. It was utterly dreadful, and probably one of the catalysts for what the voice notes that I gave out, which was so bloody miserable on that night. I was so depressed after watching that game. You owe me one, and I want to see us come out with loads of fight, loads of hunger, and at the very least, whatever happens, win the fucking game. You owe me big time.
Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905podcast. And now, back to the show. That's a really interesting point, actually, about the Premier League probably really not liking this current era of football for the product, because obviously the Premier League is such a global thing now. It's the most watched league in the world, etc., etc. We know all that. But it's not so much, as you say, it's not so much the actual types of goals, because no one really cares. Of course, we miss long shots, we miss that sort of stuff, but goal's a goal. But there's certainly the time taken over these, every throw-in and corner and things like that, is not great for the sport. And I know that number came out, didn't it, earlier this year, of like the average time the ball was in play in the Premier League has never been lower. And yeah, that isn't good for the game, the sport, and as I said, the product, which is a horrible word, but exactly the word that they would use for it. And I mean, yeah, you wonder if they will look at that and try and do something to counteract it. You know, a timer on set pieces, stuff like that. Who knows? But anyway, I sort of reflecting a little bit on what we said earlier, and about Rosenior's choice of team, and something came up on social media earlier this week. I don't know why it was doing the rounds, but it was doing the rounds, that great Conte season, 16-17, and that ridiculous run that we went on of, I think it was 14 games that we won in a row, wasn't it? Just unbelievable. And what popped up was basically the lineup. And, you know, I can read that lineup out to you of that era, that season, off hat without even having to think. You know, it's Courtois in goal, a back three of David Luiz in the middle, Azpilicueta on the right, Gary Cahill on the left. The wing backs that year, of course, Marcos Alonso and Victor Moses were just unbelievable. Kante and Matic in the centre midfield. And then Eden Hazard, player of the year off the left. Diego Costa up front. And then really the only bit that you could sort of say was rotated a bit was Willian and Pedro, the other player. You basically, 10 out of that 11, week to week, was pretty much guaranteed nailed on starters. And you could go back to other eras of Chelsea and Mourinho, great teams, and you'd probably say a similar sort of story. And then I was looking at where we're currently at with Chelsea and thinking, I wonder if Rosenior could try and start to move us more in that way. And I think it's something that we'd all like to see. And time will tell. But what I think I am starting to see is, I think I pretty much have a good idea now of what that at least 9 or 10 players would be for Rosenior. And I'll rattle through them just because I'm sure everyone's thinking the same, but it's obviously Sanchez in goal. It's Reece James right back. The centre-backs is nailed on, isn't it, as Fofana and Chalobah, particularly obviously with Colwell out. Cucurella obviously at left back. And then the big change really that's come in since Liam Rosenior's come in is this Caicedo and Santos pivot really that just seems to work so well for us and has just made us just a much more solid and I'd say able to control a game sort of team. And those two in front, and then it's freed up Enzo Fernandez to get a lot more goals and end products, and he then becomes one of those three players in front. Palmer is obviously one of those as well. And then you're probably saying that's your other one, which is then a bit more of a rotation. And it's, you know, take your pick really between Pedro Neto or Esteval, probably. And then you've got, of course, João Pedro nailed down at the moment as the number 9. And I feel like that's really, I'm reading that out, and it's 10 out of the 11. I don't think many people would argue about too much. And of course, there's going to be a little bit of rotation. For example, Gusto's going to get lots of games at right back. We're going to see some changes at centre back from time to time. But wouldn't you love to think for the last, 3 months of this season that you could nail down 8 or 9 starters game to game and know that they're going to play regularly? Because I think if we do, we'll be a much, much better team for it. And the consistency that we are seeing under Liam Rosenior will continue, because we've said it all season long and probably longer into last season that the drop from the A team, the top players down to the second string, is significant. And as Jay said before, they're not robots. We know they can't play every minute of every game. But if you can make sure that you've got 8 of those guys playing every week, we'll win a lot more games than we won't. I'm pretty sure of that. Some interesting quotes came out after the game. I've just watched it. I've just watched an interview that Cole Palmer did with Chelsea TV. I guess they call it Chelsea TV still. I guess they don't. It's the app, isn't it? The Chelsea app, YouTube, whatever you want to call it. And I thought he was really honest. Cole doesn't ever give much away, does he? He's a canny character. He's very fun to listen to. But he was very honest in saying that, I'm sort of paraphrasing a little bit, but basically saying that he's never had an injury before in his career. So it's been really hard for him to deal with this season. And he said he's going into every game not fit. And I think one of the lines that he did say was, it's tough waking up in the morning, having a game and thinking, are you going to be slow today? Are you going to be able to do what you want to be able to do on the pitch? Because he said at the moment he's not 100% fit. And it's I think validated what we've all been thinking. Certainly, Joe said it a few times on the pod, watching him just like, he is not fit. He's not fit. And I thought fair play to him for coming out and being honest about it. I mean, you can say it when you just got a hat-trick, can't you? You can probably feel like you can be a bit more honest with that. And he made a point of calling out the fact that, you know, the club are managing well, that the physios and all those kind of things are looking after him. And again, there was a little moment in an interview Liam Rosenior did with Cole Palmer in the background, and we saw it before with João Pedro. He's got a good relationship with these guys already. And another quote that came out from Cole Palmer was that he's really enjoying playing with under Liam Rosenior and has a bit more freedom to do what they want to do. And I think that is undoubtedly the thing that you're seeing, isn't it, under Rosenior so far, is that there is just a bit more expression and freedom about our attacking play. We probably actually underplayed just what a good third goal Chelsea scored today. I've watched it back from back to front. It was a really, really good move, a proper goal, and yeah, epitomises really some of the football that we have seen under Liam Rosenior. And again, that's another game that we've scored 3 goals in under him. And if you think back to some of these games that we've won, you know, 3-1 today, 3-1 at Palace, I mentioned earlier, that's, you know, 3-2 against West Ham, 3-2 against Napoli, obviously 5-1 against Charlton. It's not lacking in entertainment at times. And as I said for quite some time, that's why we love football. That's why we support Chelsea, is to be entertained. So yeah, on to Leeds on Tuesday. Massive game for us. As Joe said, we owe him one. I think that's probably the most down I've heard him on the pod all season. Although Fulham comes pretty close, to be fair, Joe. You didn't love that one either. But yeah, if we can get that 3 points against them, it just puts us in a really, really good spot, doesn't it? And then it is Hull, isn't it, on the Friday? So there is the potential to do a bit of rotation for that whole game. But personally, I'm going as strong as possible on Tuesday. And hopefully Reece James is back in the lineup as well. We'll be back on Wednesday to reflect on that game. And remember, every little thing's going to be all right. See you next time. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.